Um, it's good to see everybody. Maria, I was just kind of telling everybody, I'm still at my sister's, obviously, not my house. Um, she's supposed to come home today. I get to bring her home. And we've got a lot of systems in place, a lot of moving parts that are really supportive and good, and hopefully will prevent this kind of thing from happening again. I'm leaving on Sunday to go back home, which is exciting on the one hand, but I don't really want to leave my sister. It's hard. We have a really deep bond, and although it has been intense and stressful, it has also been beautiful and rich and deeply connecting. And and we kind of have been walking in this Baba Yaga story together. I've been sharing some of it with her, and there's been different aspects of the story that have really come to life while I've been here, especially when we were in the ER. Um, anyway, uh, yeah, so I think, today will be a little bit different than when I'm at home. I don't have any instruments, but in another way, I feel like because the story's been so alive for me, it feels like the story is really present. So, um, yeah, so let's start. We'll do a little bit of a cappella singing. I mean, that's the other note I just want to say is although I moved very quickly through the COVID, it has left me with vocal fatigue like I had the first time. So
Mm.
my my voice isn't great right now, but who cares? I mean, who cares in terms of like I don't mind that it doesn't sound great. Uh it'll just be another healing journey for me to go through and um so hopefully you'll be singing with me and all of our voices together will be beautiful. So let's have I'm gonna put y'all on mute and we'll start. So before we start, let's just take a moment and connect with our bodies, just feeling our breath all the way from the bottoms of our feet up to the crowns and beyond, connecting with the sun in the sky above us. And then we take a nice big breath out, and as we exhale, we bring our awareness down through our heads, through our bodies, and at our feet, and connecting with the earth. And then on the in-breath, bringing the energy up from the earth all the way through our bodies, out the crown of our head, and connecting with the sun. And breathing out, sending that breath all the way to the earth. So we're connecting with the earth and the sun, two of the most important planets in our physical lives. Knowing that as we breathe in and out through our bodies, we're also connecting with the world house or the cosmic house. And by paying attention to our breath, we bring our gentle, loving awareness and our presence into full embodiment. And then it's from this place that we invite in the grandmothers. Humma, 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 hey ya. Humma, humma, hey ya. Humma, 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 hey ya. Humma, hey ya, oh, hey ya. Way, hey, hey ya. Humma hey ya, oh hey ya. Humma, humma, humma hey ya. Humma, humma hey ya. Humma, humma, humma hey ya. Humma hey ya, oh hey ya. Way, hey, hey, yeah. Way, hey, 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 yeah. Ah, humma, hey, yeah, oh, hey, yeah. Humma, 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 hey, yeah. Humma, humma, hey, yeah. Humma, 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 hey, yeah. Humma, hey, yeah, oh, hey, yeah. Way, hey, hey, yeah. Way, hey, 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 yeah. Ah, humma, hey, ah, oh, hey, ah. Singing that song is reminding me that a few weeks ago I was in Ohio teaching, and we went to Serpent Mound, which is a beautiful Native American earthworks site. And the day we were there, there happened to be this, I think she was Choctaw woman, and we just instantly connected. And she said, "Oh, I would love to sing a blessing song for you." And she came over and just put her hand right on my heart and started singing this song. It was amazing. And so then I sang the Hail Mary for her, and just really reminded me that, you know, we have this incredible innate power to bless, but it's up to us to use it. And, you know, it was an amazing trip, but that's the thing I remember from this trip, is this moment where, you know, two total strangers just decided to bless each other. So, you know, sometimes it's really worth taking the risk. All right, so let's jump in. I found some. I like to start each class just reminding us of the power of story through quotes that I found or little tidbits that I remembered. And recently I had picked up that book, The Secret Life of Bees, and I found this and I just loved it. Stories have to be told or they die, and when they die, we can't remember who we are or why we are here. I'm just going to put my do not disturb on. There we go. Stories have to be told or they die, and when they die, we can't remember who we are or why we're here. And this kind of reminds me, it was so beautiful having people send in their story snippets on the audio from the thread, our WhatsApp thread. And a couple people, I think, riffed, and a few people wrote things down and read them, and all of that was gorgeous. And what I'd like to do is, between now and when we meet again, I'd like to do it again, and maybe in smaller chunks, if people would feel comfortable not preparing, not writing anything down, not having any kind of crutches, but just invoking the wildness of speech, because that helps us remember who we are and why we're here even more powerfully, because it exercises these powerful muscles. And it's really a great exercise to drop yourselves into the story, not at the beginning. Equally, it's equally important to start always at the beginning, because there is a sequence and there is a kind of respect. However, there's also this really wonderful thing of, you find yourselves, my sister and I were sitting in the ER in this room that was like 10 feet by 10 feet, no windows, fluorescent lights. So we had the lights off. So we were just sitting in the dark with the glowing of these, medical instruments. We had no idea what time it was. We had no idea. From down, all we could hear were the people lined up in the hallways, because there weren't enough rooms, who were screaming in agony, who were not in a good mental state, the beeping of everything. It was just, I thought, okay, here we are. Here we are. We just stepped into the forest walking toward Baba Yaga's house. And you put yourself there and you look around, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? I can't remember what the next part of the story is, but I know I somehow have to get to the house. How do I use the clues from my environment where I am right now that is resonating, that's echoing this part of the story? That's how we really get these muscles working well, is that we embody the sequence so deeply by telling the story over and over and over and over again, that wherever we find ourselves dropped in the story, there's a friendliness, because we stop, we look, we listen, and we let the story continue to reflect and echo. So we don't have to panic or worry that we're not going to know what happens next in the story. These big stories, like Baba Yaga, Vasilisa the Beautiful, are like tracks left behind by deities. And these tracks are some kind of special DNA, spiritual DNA, that when we come close, this DNA has a direct effect on a very deep part of ourselves and on the world around us. Stories give us a landscape for our souls to live in and communicate with us. These stories are a trysting ground, a rendezvous place where we can ignite this back and forth echo rhythm that makes life vital again. So we've talked a lot about this echoing, and I hope by now people are starting to have felt experiences of this kind of reflection or echo, that when we take the time to be with the story, to deeply inquire, to listen, that the story is constantly talking. It cannot help but talk to us. So how does everybody have an umbilical cord of some kind that they can use for today? Great. Wonderful. Does anybody have any ideas about who the father might be? Did anybody do any looking around at that? Okay, so we've got a couple people, I think, that did that. Did anybody look into the etymology of Vasilis? I'm not saying this to be shaming. I'm just trying to see where we are. Okay, great. Is there anybody who doesn't have their spindle made? Okay, great. Nirmala, everybody else has their spindle going. Okay, and in various states of spinning. Wonderful. And has anybody started collecting your ancestral cloth or your bundle heart, the thing that's connecting you in? How about, I can't see. Okay. So we want to keep we want to keep collecting those. During the next section, we're really going to get these bundles put together, inshallah, so that you have literally your umbilical place set up. And these umbilical cords are going to be a big part of that. One of the things you can do, if you're so inclined, is you can make yourself like it's kind of like a mala or a tasbih or a prayer necklace. And you can put a bead on for every riddle that we've looked into so that you could actually pray the riddles. And that's another really powerful way to keep the story alive. So we had a riddle. What is the story if the story is not a story? And we talked about things like the story is about initiation. It's about earning the light of consciousness by trading in our innocence. It's about feeding and making contact with our non-human, goddess-given, unique magic. This story is a map of a great village ritual whose motion keeps the holy alive. Obviously, there's more that could be said about that, but I'm just kind of giving you an example. So you touch that bead, what is this bead about? Oh, this is about the riddle of the story. And then maybe you have your next bead and it's, where does the ancestral soul live? And then you might think about, well, we talked about the soul living in the story. We talked about the soul living in the doll, but even deeper than that, we talked about the soul living in the marrow of our grandfather's shins, the bones, our beautiful shut'in, these shin bones that each one of us are, or rib bone or whatever they are that we're collecting. We have a bead for the doll. We have a bead for the mortar and pestle. We have a big bead for who is Baba Yaga. And I'd love to hear if anybody has any rememberings about who she is. If you do, just go ahead and unmute yourself and
I do have some Baba Yaga stuff. Something that I just learned about that I think is really, really, really neat. Let's see. Let me find the Baba Yaga part. Early versions referred to Baba Yaga as a snake. Snakes were not seen as evil. Instead, they were powerful embers of rebirth and transformation since they shed their old skin for their new skin. They were seen as wise and powerful beings that had much to teach us about the seasons. So, in the earliest tales, Baba Yaga is not a figure of evil, but rather a wild, dark, wise figure whose role is to help the heroine change and grow.
beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah, so even the image of the snake reminds us of this key element about her and her house, which is motion and movement and constant transformation, not for any morally good or bad thing, but because that is what the nature of life is. Life, death, rebirth, life, death, rebirth.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything they want to say? Heba?
I was looking more into her in terms of archetypes, and I think it's more like the crone teacher, the high priestess kind of that is not good, not evil, more neutral and kind of deals with whatever energy we bring in. So the way we approach her is basically how she'll approach us. Um, so it's essentially, yeah, the crone.
Beautiful. Thank you. Um, yeah, and we never know how she's going to approach us, and that's partly what makes her so terrifying and powerful. Anyone else have anything they want to add to those two beautiful? Yep, Nirmala.
I've been thinking a lot about the idea of Baba Yaga as the one who offers the impossible task. And interestingly enough, I feel, and I think I'm thinking about this because I'm going to be going to Greece next week, and I'm going to the island of Kythera, which is known as the island of Aphrodite, um, the island where she first materialized as Aphrodite. And it's funny because I wouldn't think of Aphrodite and Baba Yaga being connected, but I think of the myth of Psyche, where Psyche is given these impossible tasks, like gathering together all of these seeds that have been scattered. And I forget what all of the tasks are, but I think that there might be 3 in total. And that feels like it's a really important motif in different fairy tales and legends and myths, the idea of the maiden being given the impossible task. And Aphrodite in that particular myth is not it's not a very flattering myth. You know, she's angry and jealous and displays all of these qualities that make her kind of monstrous. But I've been thinking about the idea of the monstrous quality of the feminine and how it is connected with the evolution of the soul. And so that particular story makes me think of this one, and it's made me wonder about other myths about impossible tasks that are also specifically feminine, because I feel like we have some of those in different pantheons about men and the hero's journey. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been exploring a little bit.
That's beautiful. I love, these impossible things for the purpose of the growth of the soul. I think, it's human to want those things to be cuddly and, kept at arm's length and sort of intellectual and accessible, but truthfully, it's not. And, I think we've talked about this before in the story of the King Arthur stories. We have the figure of Kundria, and she is Baba Yaga walking into the court. And she's always described with, ears of a bear and the snout of a boar and the tail of a crocodile. And I mean, she is all of these things that are so fierce. And my teacher Martina always says, the human who can fall in love with her, that's the kind of human being that we want to aim for. Somebody that can fall in love with that fierceness, that intensity, that kind of terrifying nature, because that's what nature needs to stay alive and vital. If you've spent any time out in the wilderness without any sort of human-made structures to protect you, you really understand that that is nature. Nature is fierce. The weather is fierce. The animals can be very fierce. The ground itself can be very fierce. But that's what produces such incredible diversity and beauty. And so when human beings align with that, it's not saying that suddenly everything's going to become easy. It's saying human beings become awake to the fact that their job here is to feed that beauty and to be beautiful doing it. And that they die at their appointed hour with so much beauty that it causes this echo that causes life to continue to be vital. And so we're not living as vital human beings when we want Baba Yaga to look like a Disney princess. It just doesn't work that way. So Baba Yaga, an aspect of her that touched upon this sort of imagery that we've talked about the last couple of times, is this reality that she is the composite hunger of nature being neglected. That's why she's so hungry all the time. She is the embodiment of grandmother growth or mother nature in all of her diversity and fierceness. And that is who we face when we step into the forest, when we step into the unknown, when we step into pain and suffering and loss, when we die. So, there's more riddles. We've done more riddles than that, but you could add your own riddles to it. And keeping those riddles alive is important because it keeps the awareness of some of the larger layers of the story and keeps us awake to the magic. It's so good to understand the sequencing, and the sequencing is an excellent place to start. And then adding in this, focusing on the riddles and finding all the places where we have curiosity and diving into them. Because as we've said before, this story is infinite. Infinite. And the story can speak to us in infinite ways. All right. I think what I would like to do next is jump into our umbilical cord ritual. So if everybody could have their umbilical cords. And I want to just start by saying that what we're doing and what we're hopefully doing today is a really deep thing and a really big thing. And, if you were all with me and I also was at my house, I would invite you into my house, because my house is one of these umbilical cords. And I'll talk about more of that in a minute. You would have the living experience of being inside of what this is that I'm going to try to communicate and create with you today. It's a ritual. It's not a head thing. It's a deep thing. And it's something that each one of us, somewhere in our ancestral background, has. We have some version of this. And so partly what we're doing when we do this ritual is we're invoking this layer of our ancestry that is so happy that we're visiting this ritual, because it hasn't been alive for many of us for many generations. So one of the images I want you to have in your mind is this image of your arms completely outstretched like a cross, and your legs would be doing the same thing, and your head would be sort of like this. So if you were lying on the ground face down and your head was facing towards east and your rear end was facing towards the west, your right arm would be facing the south and your left arm would be facing the north. You've probably seen images of this, like in old Mayan and Aztec things, and maybe even in some things from other parts of the world where they have these, and the mouth is open, like that. These are many things. On one layer, it's a depiction of the world house, the cosmic house, as well as each one of our bodies, as well as a temple. And the mouth is the doorway and is also on this line of the head, the torso, and the crotch. This is the equinox. the arms going out, we have all of the sunrises from winter solstice to summer solstice. And with the feet, we also have the sunsets from winter solstice to summer solstice. And every point in between, all of the pulse points, the wrist, inside the elbow, inside the shoulder, inside the crotch, inside the knees, the ankles, all of these are called the 12 hearts of the world, and the 13th is right here at the neck. And all of these points, all of these pulses are time moving. I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. They are, each pulse is actual time moving, which is being carried by something larger than this body. For many cultures, it would be the sun, because that's what we're marking. The sun rises and the sun sets. And our job is to feed the one who carries time. This is a big thing of study. We're not going to get into the whole thing really super esoterically, but I want to kind of talk about it just a little bit so that we have a deeper appreciation for what it is that we're doing here. So the oldest thread that has ever been found in the world is 35,000 years old, and it was found in Germany. Obviously, we know it's much older than that. I mean, threads are older than that, but just to give us some sort of respect for thread. Thread is a spiral that is made to travel horizontally. And whenever we're working with thread, it's a good idea to ask ourselves, are we enslaving the world with our thread, or are we making her more beautiful? And thread reminds us that beauty wants to be strong, but not hard. So our threads are a really good symbol of this. And so what are these cords? These are our umbilical cords. And each one of our cords is an abbreviation of our whole being. It's like a stamp or a signature or a seal, a monogram, a holograph of our whole being that connects us to the greater thread of our ancestral umbilicus. And it's what carries this rhythm back and forth between us and our ancestors, this echo rhythm, just like in the womb between the fetus and the mother. And so it's like a nervous system of fiber, a road that we can travel on, that information can travel on. And so when we make these knots, which we're going to do onto this cord, each one of these knots delineates one of these joints, one of these nodes in time, one of these calendric days or measurements of the body of the world, and also the body, our own bodies. So let's say we have one for this right wrist. When we make prayers on this sunrise, which would be winter solstice sunrise, we are also blessing our own wrists, and the wrist of our house, and the wrist of our village, and the wrist of our world. So it's like an echo, out, 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 in. So each of these points are, they're mathematical, they're musical, they're holographic, and all 13 of these points, which will symbolically be inside of our cord, our time, is time, like I said, moving from one place to the next. It's like these heartbeats of sun ups and sun downs. So in that sense, the whole Mayan calendar that everybody's talking about is inside our bodies. And each one of our joints corresponds to these nodes of time in this world. So right now, where are we? We're in Aries. And Aries is between the right elbow and the right wrist. So we're heading, hold on one second. Yes, we're between the right elbow and the right wrist because we're in the male time of year. We're heading towards summer. And so that's the right wrist. So these joints are places where we can feed. They're not static, but they can be measured. They're alive. So this umbilical cord is an abbreviation of all of this, as well as this thread of life. I think one of the things I have found recently that I'm excited about is I found a really old medieval depiction of Mother Mary, and she's not even holding the spindle, she's just holding the thread of life. She's the spindle, and she's holding the thread of life. So it's this magical substance or this essence that the goddess weaves to create the temple of the world, which is her sacred body and which she uses to weave our bodies. So these earliest people that were making these measurements, we would call them priests or priestesses. They're not measuring to try to predict or enslave at this point. They're measuring to know where to feed her. So in the example of the sun, if you lived in a place where you could track where the sun would, you could follow. I don't know if any of you have ever done this before. If you look toward the east every morning, you can watch how, if you go from winter solstice to summer solstice, the sun's walking. So going towards the summer solstice, the sun's walking to the north. During the, going the other direction, walking to the south. And there are places on the equinox and the solstice where you can actually predict where the sun's going to rise and set. Those places were places that these priests and priestesses would feed. Are they feeding time itself? In most traditions, they're actually feeding the sun. He's the one, she's the one who's carrying time. So you're feeding the one who's carrying. And in a village, everybody would have their particular aspect that they would be feeding that would alert them by something sprouting, by a certain bird call, by the migration of a certain animal, like all those things. So what I'm trying to create here is this sense of this is something really deep and beautiful and earthy and practical, and every single one of us is a child of this in some part of our ancestry. So I unfortunately don't have any fiber. My sister doesn't have any fibers here. So maybe what I'll do, let me just look one spot here. I just found something. Okay. So these fibers, these are what hold together the whole house of the world through measurement, through divination. And so we want to approach this with a lot of courtesy and, oh man, this is amazing. This is like probably exactly how tall I am. Wow. Yeah, that's so wild. Okay. As we do this, imagine there's an echo that we're sending out into our own house, into the world, and we're going to start by really feeling these different relationships. And it might be interesting for you to really to see how long your the breadth of your arm spread is, how long your leg is. There's all kinds of really cool stuff about that. And as we're going through and as we're measuring, let's say we're measuring this point from the wrist to the elbow, and you see some scars that you have, or you remember some traumas that have happened there, know that that little knot there, that's a place that you can bless and make healing for that. Okay. So we're going to do 13 measurements because 12 is all of the knowns It's a, in Mayan tradition, it's one of the ways that you say all the 12 things, but you really are saying all the 13 things, because the 13th is always for all the immeasurables, all the unspeakables, all the unknowables. So kind of 12 is code for 13, and 13 is code for everything. So our first measurement, let's just bring our umbilical cords into our hands, and let's take a moment and kind of sit with all of this that we've just conjured up, all of this deep reverence and understanding for the power of thread and the power of measurement and the gift of these beautiful bodies, which are an echo of her body, the only body. This echo of knowing that in our body is the whole universe. When we bless the Milky Way in the sky, we're also blessing the Milky Way inside of our body. When we pray for healing for the Ukraine, we're also praying for the Ukraine that exists inside of our own body. When we relish the summer solstice, we're also relishing the magic of our right wrist and all those articulations that are so magical. So let's put a little breath on our cord just to bring it to life, bring her to life. And the first measurement we've already done, because our first measurement is the length of our entire body. So if you don't have knots on both ends, this would be a good time to put a knot on the very, very end of both of your ends of your umbilical cord. And these also represent both the sunrises and the sunsets all together, the right side and the left side. Our next measurement is going to be this measurement that is used for a lot of natural building and natural sewing. And this is the measurement between your left longest finger stretched out all the way to your heart. And that spot is where you're going to make your second knot. Well, technically it's your third knot, but it's your second designation. So you're going to make a knot right at that spot where your heart is. And again, the measurement is from your left longest finger. And we're doing this without any anxiety or any, it's fluid. It's like a dance. It's not about perfection. It's about beauty and feeling and resonance. All right. The next measurement is you take that spot where your left finger was, and you bring that, this is your starting place. So now you're going to take that spot and you're going to put it on your shoulder, right where that pulse point would be. And you're going to measure between your shoulder and the pulse point in your elbow. And we're doing our left side. And then you put a knot there and make a nice blessing, blow some of your breath there.
One.
Go ahead.
Can you repeat this one?
Absolutely.
We're taking.
So the first one was from the end of your finger to your heart. Then you bring that end back. You start here and you're marking from like your armpit to your crease of your elbow. You can put your elbow down, your arm down, so that you can just let it kind of drape down. So you can put the end of it, like literally in your armpit, and then drape it down. And then right where it gets to your crease in your elbow, just pick it there and then make a knot.
And is it the same part that went to our heart? So it goes starting knot, elbow, heart. So it's between the heart knot and the finger knot that we put the elbow knot.
Yeah, so it's like, that's what I was gonna have you look at is your heart, this one's a longer one, so that's the longer movement. So you bring your, so Maria, not at your heart, you put it into your armpit.
For
No.
the second one.
Okay, let me do this again. Your first measurement, you have your knot at the end in your left hand, and you open up and you have your heart, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let go of your right hand. No, it should be at the heart. Your left, so hold that out again. Okay, so let go of the one that's at your chest. Let go of yes, okay. Now bring your hand back to you. Yep, now that little one, put that underneath your left armpit and then let your cord dangle down, and where it hits your elbow, pinch it right in that spot and make a knot.
It's small.
Yeah. Yeah, it's small because it's just from here to here. So you can take a look at that. Look at how much smaller that is than that first knot we made from the heart. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take that same beginning knot that you put into your armpit, and now you're going to take that beginning knot and you're going to put it at your elbow. And you're going to see where your wrist is. You're going to pinch it right where the wrist is. It's going to be really near that other little knot. It might not even be right next to it, depending on how your body is. And you're going to make another knot. And this, right now, this knot that we're making, this represents now. Why does this one represent now? It's kind of a trick, because technically it would be on the right side, but this is for both the right and left. The left is standing in for the right and left, because right now where we are on the world house is we're not quite at summer solstice. We're so close. We're in this stretch of time between the elbow and the wrist, which is called Aries right now. We'll be soon moving into Gemini. No, I'm sorry, we're in Gemini. We're in Gemini. So we're in Gemini here. Soon we'll be in Cancer. When we get to the solstice, we'll be heading into Cancer. All right. Next one is we keep starting with the same knot, and we're going to measure our hand from the finger that's the tallest all the way to the bottom of the hand. And we're going to make a knot right there. This is number 5.
Jahanra, starting at the
top
first, which end of the string?
Always the same end.
Always the same end. Okay.
Always the same end, because then you can really look at the different
measurements.
Okay,
so this is right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 6 is in a Mayan dialect is called twi. And this is a really important measurement, and it's between the pinky and the thumb. So you might even lay down your cord on on your like desk or on something, so you can kind of pull it out with your pinky. And you can see, for most of us, it's a measurement that's in between 2 knots. It's a little bit longer than the hand, but it'll be just whatever your body's measurement is. This twi is used for a lot of sacred measurement. All right. We have now just done the whole upper, the part of the house, which is this horizontal sunrise thing. Now what we're going to do is all the way out, as far out as you can get
Oh,
it.
that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the hang 10. All right, so we've done 6 of them. Now we're going to do the sun sets, starting from the same side, just so we can see things. We are going to measure from the hip, right where the upper part of the leg goes into the torso, all the way to the knee. And you're going to make a knot there and put a blessing on it.
Sorry, from the beginning.
Yep. From your hip, right where, if you like lift your hip up, there's a crease right there. In front, if you kind of like do it in front, like where if you lift up your leg, there's a crease where it touches where your leg comes into your body. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So hip to knee. And then you're actually going to do your knee to your ankle.
So don't make a knot from to the knee.
Yep, you make a knot after you do the hip to the knee.
Okay.
And then you make a knot from the knee to the ankle. And then you want to make a measurement that measures the length of your foot from your toe to your ankle. All right. Those are the sunset points. Now we have 3 around the globe kind of measurements. We're going to do our waist. So again, from the same side, go ahead and just wrap your cord all the way around your waist. And this is like the equinox. And then we're going to do one around our heart. So it's kind of like a bust measurement. And then your final body measurement is going to be your head. And then you can just take a moment and look at all the different relationships. It's like Morse code or a musical score or some sort of mathematical equation. And you can take time to meditate on that or think about it. And I can send you the different measurements so that you can know what they are, and then you can really take a look at it and see what you see from the different measurements. We're going to make a 13th knot for all the unique unmeasurables that we just cannot measure. And you can do this however you want. You can either lay your cord on your lap and just reach down and pick a place, or you can kind of wind it around your hand, and like you would pick a tarot card or something, from this kind of all bunched up, you just put your finger somewhere. But the important thing to do is just ask before you do that. Just say, you beautiful and wild, unknown measurements, you the great daughter of the wilderness, you who we will never be able to measure because we want you as the mystery to stay alive today. I make a knot in your honor. And then you find your spot and go ahead and make your last knot and put some breath on her. And just kind of notice where she showed up. All right, so now, ostensibly, you have, this is you in thread form. Now, you can tie the two ends together just with a simple overhand knot, not too tight. And now you have a cat's cradle. And if you want, you can actually start telling the story of Baba Yaga, by creating a story with thread. This is the most ancient writing of all, most ancient storytelling device. Pretty cool, huh? And we can share that with each other. We come up with, it can be very simple. You can just come up with maybe 4 or 5 patterns that all, come off of each other. There's all kinds of different ones you can do. And for now, this will be the thread that we use to bind our bundle together. Whatever you've been able to find so far, you can bind your bundle with your thread. Does anyone have any questions or reflections before we move on? So, Carrie, did you have a question? No.
Yes. There's just so much here, Johanna. It's like, you're giving us so much. So I have all my knots, and it's just going to be fun to learn more about them and figure out what they all are. And I love it. And it's like I have all these knots, but I don't know where they are in my body necessarily. But I love them. I'm just going to love the knots without knowing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's such a great place to start, because it's like when you first learn a new language or something, you just kind of taste the sounds. You don't really know what you're saying. And there's a beauty in not knowing, because sometimes our head gets in the way of seeing and of hearing. And so I think that's a really beautiful way to think about that. Martine had us do a similar thing when we made our first jackets, just to look at all the different measurements. And, it kind of blows your mind to see how much fabric it takes to make a sleeve. I mean, it's like kind of blows your mind. Or a hood. A hood takes a ton of fabric,
Wow.
And and yeah, in some ways it feels really hard to even teach any of this, because it's so big, it's so comprehensive, and it feels almost disrespectful to teach such a small amount. But we're living in a time where I feel like it's important to at least begin trying to teach it, because it's something that I don't want to be forgotten. It's, even in my little house, I have different little things that designate, not little things. I have beautiful handmade, mostly little bags that I've made out of hand-tanned leather and felt. And when I'm in a remembering phase, I feed them. When the solstice comes, those get fed. When the equinox and all the different things get fed so that the house remembers itself, so that the people in the house can remember themselves. And so, at a later date, we might talk about how you might do that in your own house. It makes a difference because it also forces you to really understand, where are you living? Where is East? And how is your house oriented or not to the cardinal directions? And in all ancient cultures, houses were oriented very specifically, and they were made on the measurements of the people that lived in the house from an ancient form, so that everything was done with consciousness, with measurement in a very sacred way, and we were living in that. So our lives were not only feeding, but being fed. Oops, am I okay? Okay.
You haven't changed. You're the same.
Yeah, for some reason my video slowed down and it looked really strange. So, okay, good. I think my computer was just going like, oh yeah, we remember that. We long for that. All right. So for now, what I want to do is I want to jump back into the story and hold all of this that we've done and bring that with us, because we're heading into a landscape that is also this. What I'm trying to say is this story is a thread, and there are nodes in the story. There are calendrics in the story. So we're going to begin with a prayer, an invocation, like we always do, and then we're going to go into a recap. All right. Bone Lady, Fire Lady, mother of all mothers, whose grand motion ignites the world, fires up wisdom sparks that live like stardust in our marrow. Spinning Lady, Dancing Lady, you who marks the thresholds with your very body, only you know who can cross, who can enter, and whose candle will be snuffed out today and every day. Woman of contradiction, who pushes us to our very edge to find the light that is ours to carry, ours to shine. Your trials are not punishments, but the opportunity to become the radiance that this world needs to be vital and beautiful and full of food. Mother, whose flesh and breath, whose fluids and flames are the elemental forces that shape us. Please send out your envoys to visit us in our imaginations, in our dreams, in our lives. And when we are lost, when we are confused, when we no longer recognize our lives, when we step one foot, then the other into that forest of the unknown, dear grandmother, help us to remember what to do. Help us to remember that the only thing to do is to be silent. The dark forest knows where we are. Every bush and tree, every sound, every animal and insect, and we must let it find us. We must let the forest find us. All right. So I'm curious, what of the story, is there a part of the story that has really stayed with you, or is there a part of the story that you just tend to always forget? You get to that point and you're like, God, I can never remember. I'm curious to know, as part of our recapping and remembering the story, if anybody would share anything about either of those two kinds of places that there are. Heba.
I think when you asked us to try and imagine parts that are missing in the story, I found a gap in my imagination when it came to where Baba Yaga goes and comes from whenever she takes off and returns. And
Yeah.
it just, I can't, and I have a wild imagination,
Mhm.
but I can't find any human words that to put together that would describe where she goes and comes from. And I feel like this is something that I might need to potentially dig deeper into. And I wanted to ask if there may be a part of the story that you haven't told us that kind of revolves around that constant return to home and leaving and back and forth, and like where does she go? Um, what does she do? Um, yeah, that part is a bit of a riddle for me.
That is an excellent riddle, and I have a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to say anything right now because I would like for us to, each of us, receive that riddle and really think about it between now and the next time we meet, because that's big. That's a big riddle. And for me, it is anyway. I mean, it's all a big riddle. So I would just really encourage you, not for finding the answers necessarily, but to just steep in the potential of that, in the inquiry of that, and it's really beautiful that some part of you drew you to that spot. I'm not sure if I've had anybody so far in all the 4 groups be drawn exactly to that spot, so that excites me. So let's all take that on a little bit. Beautiful. Anybody else?
I feel that the hardest spots for me to figure out or to feel into are the parts with the father. And I'm not sure why.
Hmm.
Um, so that's the part that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there's, he's not on the surface, he doesn't look like he's got a very big part there. So that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. We'll talk more about that in a bit.
Okay.
Maria?
Actually, at the beginning, when her mother gives her the doll, and I
Mm.
have many questions where the kind of deeper where the doll came from, and a lot of the symbolism of the mother protecting the daughter and giving her the doll to take care of her. So I think that comes from my relationship with my mother, but I think that's one of the parts that has um, it's the doll and the moment that she's given the doll and where is she coming from.
Yeah, excellent. That's actually really connected with what Terry had said beforehand. So it'll be fun to weave those two together.
Hmm.
Is there anybody who would like to start us off on the story this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are? You don't have to say a lot, just I'm going to invite everybody to at least give 1 or 2 sentences in our recap today.
God.
We
I
heard
could
that,
say
Terry.
I sort of forget how it starts. How does it start? Um,
Well, let's start there.
Okay, I forget how it starts, but I
Yeah.
know.
So
I know
here's a beginning that you can
2
do. So
people have a baby.
this is one thing I want to really impress upon us. You always, always start where you are. Beautiful story. Here I am, Teresita, the great forgetter. And today, just like every other day, I have forgotten you. Mother, please send me an image, send me a feeling, send me something so that I may start today. And now you've already started. You're already in the story and you have started exactly where you are. So
Okay.
let's try like something like that.
Okay. Did I do it?
Go ahead and do
Say
it.
that?
Yeah. Well, say it in your own words.
Mother, mother, please. I'm forgetting how the story really starts. Could you send me the words and the feelings and the images and the image, the first image? Thank you. Thank you. I'm getting an image. The first image that I'm getting is the baby. The
Mhm.
baby is born because a mother and a father come together and they love each other and
Mm.
they have this little baby and they live for a number of years very happily. And then the mother becomes sick and she knows that she's going to die. And she calls her daughter to her and says that she has something to give her. Um, and she says that I have a little doll for you. And this little doll, if you talk to this doll and tell it your worries and feed it some of your love and thoughts, it will help you. She will help you. And so keep this doll with you always. And even though I'm not going to be here with you, the doll is going to really be part of me continuing to help you even after I die.
Hmm.
So that's
Beautiful. Okay. So I think we all just witnessed something that can happen for all of us, and how beautiful. She sent you that image immediately. And not only did she send you the image that helped you feel where the thread was, she also spoke to you specifically in your telling. Do you hear what I'm saying?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. Yeah,
Hmm.
I
So
get it.
the telling of the story is also like a divination. We have to, even just telling the story, we have to step into her woods. We have to get uncomfortable. And this is what kept me from teaching this class for a while, was because I have to do this every single time. I get to do this every single time that we start class. Whew, I don't know if she's going to show up. I just don't know. That was beautiful. Thank you for trusting yourself, trusting us, and for opening yourself to the story. All right, so here we are in the beautiful story. The mother has died. Vasilisa, the beautiful, the fair, she has received the doll. Does anyone else want to pick up from here? Nirmala?
Okay, I don't know if I remember everything really well, but
It's okay. If you didn't remember it, just tell it with confidence,
sure.
and that will be the story.
Yeah, no, Terry gave me some courage, and that was really beautiful. Okay, so Vasilisa's mother is gone, and her father is grieving, and he thinks to himself, I want to find a new mother for my daughter and a new wife for myself. So he marries a woman who has two daughters, and this woman is very cold and cruel to Vasilisa. And for some reason, her father doesn't seem to really notice what's happening, but the stepmother gives Vasilisa so many grueling tasks that just exhaust her, and that
Mhm.
she feels she will never complete them. Gathering the wood and milking the cow and cleaning and cooking from sunup to sundown, Vasilisa is exhausted. But she feels a sense of solace when she sees her doll, and every time she drinks milk, she gives milk to her doll as well and whispers her troubles into her little doll's ears. And this gives her the strength to go on, even though she feels that all of her strength has run out.
Mm. Wow. You know, we could feel that you were in it. You were feeling the story, and you were describing, you were letting the words come from your imagery and your feeling. Everyone could feel that, right? You weren't telling us something. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're feeling this way in which Vasilisa is beginning to get stretched. She's beginning to get worked by the initiation. Her mother has turned into this other creature. She's having a different experience as a daughter and as an initiate. And she's beginning to forge this deeper connection with her doll. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to pick up the baton? Heba.
At some point in time, Vasilisa is about to knock the door of womanhood. And weirdly enough, maybe out of fear, that was the moment that her father decided he needed to leave for
Beautiful.
a trip to trade and sell, and maybe it felt a bit of a betrayal to leave her fate in the hands of the mother that somehow was emptying womanhood from Vasilisa before it even entered her body. And the mother decides that it's best to take Vasilisa and the two sisters to a house in the middle of the woods where Baba Yaga lives in the forest, and have her do all kinds of incredible work in attempt to again dim her light and maybe have her never reach that point of um, maturity, or rather stealing her innocence early on. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Mm. Beautiful. You brought out some really amazing subtle points that some we haven't even really talked about. I love this point about her stepmother maybe emptying her womanness before she even gets a chance, or stealing innocence. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other part of the story that has never been talked about, which is a path that some Vasilisas had to walk. Well, Maria, can you add another beautiful?
Lost my voice.
Perfect.
Just kidding. So the stepmother, became very jealous of Vasilisa, seeing her beauty and wishing all that kindness and beauty for her own daughters.
Mm.
Being so jealous and irate by the beauty of Vasilisa, they moved them to the forest, where the mother-in-law continues to force Vasilisa into work and restless nights, where she sent Vasilisa to the forest every day, hoping that she will never come back and she will disappear.
Mm.
But through all this, Vasilisa will trust her doll and ask for her help to walk her through the forest. Vasilisa learned in the forest not be afraid, but to listen to the nature, to the trees,
Mm.
her path every day, to walk her back to her home. This made the stepmother completely mad, and the mother decided to come up with an idea to force Vasilisa to get into the forest and meet Baba Yaga, so she will disappear forever.
Mm.
So she planned cautiously to extinguish all the lights in the house, forcing Vasilisa to go into the forest the next day.
Mm. Beautiful. I love the part about each foray into the forest. The doll is helping Vasilisa become more and more familiar. And, you know, it always feels like the world is conspiring against us when we find ourselves at the edge of that forest. So now you've all proven to me that you know the story really well, which is great. Thank you, everyone. So we're gonna move through the story to get to where we want to get to today. Yeah, so the stepdaughters are in on this little shenanigans, and that night, while they are all doing their tasks by the light of the candle, one of the daughters pretends to accidentally snuff out the candle when trying to cut the wick, and Vasilisa is forced by the two of them because they already have enough light. They've already gone through all of this, and it's her turn. So she heads to the pantry and sings and talks to her doll and feeds her doll, and her doll says, "I know Baba Yaga. We're going to be just fine. Let's go." So off she goes through the part of the forest that she knows and into the edge, that threshold place that she doesn't know. And she enters in the darkness into the forest, under the dark of the moon. And she spends time on this journey. How does she find Baba Yaga's hut? Because it's the only place she can go at this point. And on her journey there, as she gets closer and closer, on the last day of journeying, before the sun rises, she sees a white horseman on a white horse. And then as the sun rises, she sees a red horseman on a red horse. And at the end of the day, she ends up in this clearing where she indeed finds the house of Baba Yaga completely surrounded by a fence of human bones and skulls. And just as the sun is setting and the dark of night is coming, the dark horseman arrives and disappears as if into nowhere. And as Vasilisa is trying to take in the horror of this fence and the skulls becoming brighter and brighter, all of a sudden the wind picks up. And suddenly she sees appear a terrifying creature in a mortar with a pestle and a broom. And the trees are cracking and bending, and this being lands, and she says, "Ah!" With her big nose, she begins to smell the air around her, and she says, "I smell something. What is that? Human flesh? Ah!" And Vasilisa says, It's me, grandmother." She says, "What are you doing here? I wasn't expecting any visitors." And she says, "Well, my stepsister sent me here to get some light." "Oh, did they? Well, why don't you stick around with me for a little while and we'll see what can be seen." So Vasilisa calls out to the gate to open, and they go into the yard, mortar and all. And Vasilisa stares at the hut, who seems to be staring right back at her, whose constant motion and whose crazy little legs terrify her even more. And Baba Yaga calls for the door to open, which opens, and Vasilisa steps into this house that's much, much bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And the wallpaper is moving with all kinds of plants and animals and weathers and motions and constellations. And inside the house, she sees a big stove and she sees a bunch of food in the process of being prepared. Am I okay? Okay. And Baba Yaga says, bring me my dinner. And so Vasilisa prepares all the food, puts it on the table, and she watches this creature, not quite human, not quite animal, but very animal and sort of human and sort of cosmic and sort of undescribable, eat enough food for the whole world. And then just as she's about done, she hands Vasilisa just a tiny bit of soup and a little bit of bread and says, here, have some of this. What I want you to do is I want you to wake up tomorrow morning and I want you to do all the cleaning and all the making of dinner, plus this one extra task. And if you don't get it done by the time I'm home, I'm going to eat you up. And so last time we talked about how there was an infinite amount of tasks tailored just to the initiate that she has to complete, things that feel impossible, counting the number of stars, washing her 10-mile-long clothing, counting the moles on the body of Baba Yaga, counting the tail feathers in a bird of prey, whatever, all these various things. And then Baba Yaga comes home at night, a little bit disgusted to see that all the tasks have been done and the poppy seeds have been cleaned, and that's when the 3 pair of hands appear. These are hands that are like the digestive system of the holy. And last time we talked about how Baba Yaga is trying to coax the girl into talking, and Vasilisa says, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, because some part of her knows, the heart of her doll knows that in order for the holy to live, in order for Baba Yaga to continue, some mystery has to remain. That responsibility ages you. It's not so much that we're trying to snuff out somebody's curiosity. It's that being over curious can be a bit disrespectful because you cannot be responsible for everything yet. You have to go bite by bite, step by step. And so this goes on for days, and we don't know how many days. Vasilisa spends the days cleaning and doing all the tasks and getting familiar with Baba Yaga's house and her rhythms and having a deeper connection with her doll and trusting more and getting more capacity and growing her muscles until that day when Baba Yaga comes home and she says, what's going on with you? How is it that you've been able to do all this stuff? And Vasilisa says, well, I walk in this world guarded and guided by the blessing of my mother. And Baba Yaga says, this house is no place and has no place for human blessings. You must get out of here. What is this all about? And I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but part of what this is about is what's called the rival of mothers. And this has to do with human mothers versus the mother. Vasilisa's mother is attempting to protect her from the hunger of the Great Mother. And that's part of what this doll is about, and part of why Baba Yaga says, out with you. I'm never going to get what I want here because you're protected by the blessing of your mother. Baba Yaga has to keep the agreements. So she cannot eat Vasilisa because Vasilisa has kept her agreements. So she kicks her out. And you have to get kicked out through the vaginal canal, otherwise you get pooped out, and that's worse. All right. So she gets kicked out, she gets birthed out, and Baba Yaga gives her one of the skulls. And this is significant for bigger calendric reasons of lunar calendar. We're not going to get into that right at the moment. She hands her the light and kicks her out, and Vasilisa heads back through the forest, back to the house on the edge of the forest where her stepmother and her stepsisters are still living. And when they see her coming, they begin to rush out, but Vasilisa has this moment where she questions, where she forgets, because even though we go through initiation, even though we have moments of extreme remembrance, we also have moments of extreme forgetfulness. And she almost ditches the skull, but the skull says, hey, don't forget me. Don't throw me away. And maybe you've experienced this when you've gone on retreat, or you've had a moment of initiation where you've had the wool ripped from your eyes. There's a little bit of these fumes of this remembrance that sometimes protect you when you first come out. And that's what this is. And so she remembers, and she says, oh yeah, I got to remember this. And so the mother and the stepsisters come running out, and they grab that light from her, because they have been without light ever since she's left. Bring it into the house, but all through that day and all through the night, that skull shines this light upon them, this marrow light, this light from Baba Yaga's hut, and it burns them to cinders. So in the morning, Vasilisa's alone, and she picks up those cinders, and she picks up the skull, which is now not filled with that light, because where is that light? Yeah, it's in Vasilisa. It's in her bones now. The light has been transferred to her bones. And she takes them out and she buries them. And this is an old Mongolian bear ritual. This is an old Slavic ritual. These are old rituals that our bones still remember. Her life has changed. She is now a new creature. She's a new being. She is the fire. Her bones have become ignited. And now she goes out to find an old woman to live with. This is a part of the story we don't get much. This whole last part of the story, there is not much here. So she goes and lives with an old woman. Of course, this isn't just any old woman, right? Some of us might know who she is. And she's hanging out with this old woman, and she says, oh my gosh, Grandma, I'm just getting so bored. Would you please go out and buy me some flax? So her hair's growing. She's calling for the flax. At least I could sit and spin and then, pass the time. You could say pass the time, or you could say, she realizes she's initiated. She says, it's my duty to feed time now. It's my duty to feed the one who carries time. So the old woman, she says, all right. So she goes out and gets some flax, and she brings it to Vasilisa, who begins spinning it. And of course, now her spinning is so beautiful. Her thread comes out as even and as thin as hair. And soon she has a whole heap of yarn, and she says, you know what? It's time for me to weave it. But I don't have a loom. So that night, something magical happens. For the very first time, her doll begins to speak to her first. This is a magical moment. This is one of those little nodes of time on the thread. Somebody could write more about this moment. Excuse me. The doll says, bring me an old reed and a shuttle and some hair from a horse's mane, and I'll fashion you a loom, the kind that you want. This is a whole magical thing here, and we'll get into this more next time. So Vasilisa goes and collects everything, and she gives it to the doll, and she goes to bed. And while she's sleeping, the doll makes her a beautiful new loom. So this is something that is happening inside of Vasilisa's body. And by the end of winter, the cloth is ready and so fine. This cloth can pass through the eye of a needle like thread. Here's another riddle. And then Vasilisa and the old woman bleach the cloth in the sun. And she says, Grandmother, why don't you go out and sell this cloth and you take the money for yourself? I want to gift that to you. And the old woman says, oh my God, no, child, this cloth is fit for no one but a king to wear. In another version, it says, this cloth is fit for no one but the holy. I'm going to go to the palace, bring this cloth to the palace. And so off she goes, and she starts walking back and forth underneath the window of the king in the palace. And the king sees her and he says, what do you want, old woman? And that's probably not what he said, but that's what this version of the story says. And she says, I'm here because I have the most beautiful cloth that you have ever seen. And I want to show it to you. It's for no one's eyes but you. And so the king orders the old woman into the palace, and he sees that this cloth is filled with wonder. It's not really what the story says, but it is what the story says. He sees something. How much do you want for this? This is how we know this is like a more modern story. How much do you want for this? He says. And she says, oh, no, it's too fine to be sold, your majesty. I've brought it for you as a gift. And the king thanks her and showers her with all kinds of gifts, and then he sends her home. And then he tries to get some shirts made out of this beautiful cloth, and there's nobody that they can find in all the kingdom that has the talent to make cloths. And so he says, okay, go get that woman back here. So he brings her back, and he says, you know what? You spun this yarn and you wove this cloth. So now it's you that must make these shirts. And she says, oh, I didn't do it. Beautiful young maid named Vasilisa. And he says, well, then let her make the shirts. And I'm sure that's not what he said. So the old woman returns back to the house and presents Vasilisa with the fabric, and Vasilisa already knows. But she says, you know what? Here's the fabric. You can make some cloths for this king. And she says, okay. So she gets to work and she makes 12. Why does she make 12 shirts? And then the old woman takes the 12 shirts and she goes back to the castle. And what does Vasilisa do? She does this thing that is really important to this whole ritual that is never talked about. Does anybody remember what she does? Well, of course, she puts on her most beautiful outfit and she combs her hair and she does all these magical things. But the most important salient thing is she waits. There is always the ritual waiting. And she waits in a very particular way. You don't ever chase after the holies, you wait for them. She's keeping the agreement by wearing this beautiful clothing of rainbows, because she's also she's not wearing a sweatshirt and she's not wearing something from the store. She's wearing something that she made. She is wearing her threads. She is pronouncing who she is. She's waiting to be seen. And so, by and by, she sees the servant of the king approaching, and he says, beautiful maiden, the king would like to reward you for your cleverness. That's the word they use in the translation, for your cleverness, which is a bit of a crafty, bit of a funny word, which we can look into. And he says, the king would like to see you because he's fallen madly in love with you. And of course she goes there, and the king is like, you should be my wife. I hate this ending of the story this way, but this is the way it is. This is the way it was during the time that this story was translated. You should be my wife. You should become my property. And so he takes both of her milk white hands in his, and he leads her to sit in a throne next to him. That's a good part. I like that. And soon after, they're married, and Vasilisa's father comes back from his travels, and he lives with them. And what happens to the old woman? Well, of course, she comes and lives with them in the castle. And as for the little doll, to the end of her days, she is always carried about with Vasilisa inside her pocket. Once upon a time, there was a girl. And then we start over again. All right. This is where we wanted to get to today. So you can see there's still a lot of riddles in this story. There's still a lot of places for us to go. But what I want to do is I want to unpack a couple of things, and I want to give us the first peeling back of this next layer of the story, if that's okay with everybody. I want to take a moment with Baba Yaga's house, because this is something worth taking some time with. Who is this house? What is this house? Does anybody have any ideas? Well, first of all, one thing we can say is that this house is Baba Yaga. This house is not separate from Baba Yaga. It's a physical manifestation of her incredibly complex, contradictory nature. This is a place just like one of these knots, just like one of those places where the sun drops down on the horizon that you can mark and feed. It is a threshold place where we can meet her, where we can feed her, where in physical time and space we can go, or we usually are brought there. This house, its movement is the fluidity of fate, the unpredictability of nature, and this hut bridges the gap between the mundane and the spiritual or the supernatural, between earth and sky. For the initiate, this house tests our resolve and offers us magical gifts, but first we have to confront our fears. We have to make difficult choices and follow through with them in order to receive. This hut embodies all the contradictions, both nurturing and threatening, wise and capricious, of nature, of grandmother growth, of Mother Nature. So it is an embodiment of her, it is a threshold, it is a symbol of all of this contradiction, of motion, of bridging, of magic. And that's why we see so many different kinds of descriptions of this hut, because it's different for everybody. And it would take, 20 million sets of eyes to see the totality of this hut. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start taking us into this next layer. I'm hoping that maybe I can show you a possible way of how to approach, how to learn to see, how to learn how to ask the questions, how to move inward and outward, and where to look. So the way I want to start that is I want everybody to take a moment and really feel what it feels like when you don't know, when you can't see what that next layer is, that moment just before you know something new, that moment before something that was hidden is suddenly revealed. How does it feel when it feels like the entrance is not open to you, that you can't quite get there? And so we've looked at Vasilisa as being a human girl who faces fears and challenges, who experiences loss. We could say we have experienced the story as the natural cycle of living. We've also looked at the layer of the story that speaks of initiation and growth. But now we're going to move our vision into a new gaze, as within, so without. Microcosm into macrocosm, human into... Remember, it only takes a small shift to see a bigger reality. And so we're going to take a small adjustment, feel for it. The Father, this is actually still from the previous layer, but we didn't get there. The Father, where does the Father go when he leaves? This is connected to another question. Who is the mother of the doll? Who is the mother of the doll? Anyone have a thought about that? Who is the mother of the doll? We have not had this question yet. And this goes to what, was that you, Maria, who was asking? I can't remember. Yeah. Maybe it's good to know that there was a mother to this doll. Okay. I'm trying to think which way to go first here. The Father, the first thing that we see is that the Father is a merchant, right? That's the only thing that we've really been told about the Father. If you look up the etymology for the word merchant, you are going to get all of these words that are built on this M-E-R-C, M-A-R-C, mercatare, mercatantem, marciant. So the Father, he's a merchant, he's a buyer. But if you look into other stories, if you look into fathers' roles and initiations, it's not just the mother and the old women that take part in the girls' initiation. Other people in the village have other things they need to do. One of the main things, especially in ancient European culture, medieval European culture, the father was responsible for gifting the daughter with a distaff, D-I-S-T-A-F-F. I don't know if any of you have looked into spindles, but if you look into all the old depictions, the women are not only carrying a spindle, they also have a distaff. There's two kinds. One is a pole type that looks like a torch or a spear, and the other type is a blade type. I was going to see if I could do this sharing of screen. I don't know if I'll be able to figure this out, actually. Okay. If I go to share, does anybody know? Okay, there we go. Okay, does everybody see this picture? Yeah? Okay. This is one example of a distaff. Now, it's an upright piece with a foot. So you sit on the foot part, and the inside of the vertical piece is facing the person spinning, so you're holding it in place by sitting on it. Now, what do these distaffs look like? They kind of look like people. And if you imagine, can you see my cursor on here? If you imagine flax or wool, that would be the hair on the distaff. So in most post-indigenous spinning, there's always a distaff of some kind. These are linked to the spinning of fate and destiny. They're a power, they're a symbol of women's, strength. The distaff represents the mother's side of the family. They're a symbol of authority and power. And even in a lot of medieval depictions, they show women jousting, not with these kind, but with the pole kinds. And you can Google that and take a look at it. They're very magical. They are often buried with the woman when she dies. They are often inherited. They are infused with magic and power. They're seen as being shamanic. Different gods and different goddesses have them. Mother Frigg is known to spin clouds with her distaff. So the father goes to get a distaff from a master distaff maker for his daughter, because this is the first doll. These distaffs were dressed up. They were carried around like babies. They were fed, ritually fed. The distaff is what began training the girl. The distaff was so the actual doll was an invisible process that the girl would manifest as she learned how to spin, as she learned how to weave, as she learned how to take care of and feed the distaff, and then of course the spindle. And so that was an invisible process that happened over time through initiation, as the girl more and more embodied and manifested all the skills that came from all these things. In medieval culture and in ancient culture, the culture of the amount of time that was devoted to traditional tasks associated with creating textiles took up the most amount of time of anything in the culture and was the most valued. And spinning was the most time consuming of all of them. So it makes sense that there was a lot around all of this. So what I'm wanting people to kind of take a look at and really just kind of take in is that the distaff is an important part of this story, but it's an invisible part of the story at this point. The only way we know that it's there, that she's there, is because the father goes away. There's so much more I want to talk about this, and we'll save that for another time. I want to kind of get going to where we're trying to get here. So the father leaves to go get the distaff. All the words for merchant are related to another word, which is the peeling back of this next layer. The father, aside from being manifested in every single one of those riders and horse, the father is the white man on the white horse. The father is the red man on the red horse. The father is the black man on the black horse. And those men on the horses, remember where they show up. Where do they show up? And with whom do they always appear? Anybody? Did you see? I think Terry said something. I can't hear you. Let's see. Hold on. I will. Okay, there. Oh, you're still muted.
Okay, Vasilisa. They always show up with her.
They do, absolutely. And who else?
Baba Yaga.
And so the reason that you can't answer that question is because you're still thinking like a human being. The person, the being that that the horse and rider always show up with is the sun. Who is always with the sun? Always. Who is it?
Who is it?
I'm talking about literally. Who has the name that starts with MERC?
The Father. The
Always
Father.
with the sun.
Oh,
I know this is
Mercury.
really hard. Think of how.
Planet Mercury.
Yes.
Really?
I want you to all just take that in for a minute. The Father is Mercury, the planet Mercury. We are heading into a new layer here,
Oh, wow.
a non-human layer. Woo!
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. It's beautiful. What I want you also to realize is, or not realize, feel how that feels, that you know now that there is this layer of as above, so below. They're connected. This opens up a whole, what I would like you to do, I know it's exactly time now. What I'd like you to do between now and the next time we meet is start to look at the story and think, if he's Mercury, gosh, who are all these other beings in the story? And are there other beings that I haven't been looking at as beings because I've been looking at them as objects or humans? So this is what we're going to delve into in the next 6 sections is, if he's Mercury, well then who the heck is Vasilisa? What is this story actually really about on this new level? Heba.
Just curious because you mentioned that we will be working on that in the next couple of sessions. Will you be open to having new people participate, or is it just our tight-knit group? Asking for my girlfriend.
I'm just wondering if it
Because
would
I
be,
know this part will blow her mind, and I'm like, I don't know if I should be telling her any of this or
yeah. I just don't know if it would, I don't know if it could unfold for her. Like, I don't know how much, maybe you and I could just we can
okay,
talk a little
no
bit.
worries.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So does everybody have just a couple more minutes? We could talk about some scheduling stuff. Okay. I know that was just a big bomb that I dropped, but I kind of wanted to work up to dropping the bomb so that you can just feel the bomb and really hang with it. I'll be sending you a follow-up email with some things like I always do. So Catherine, so what I was thinking is starting back up probably toward in August sometime. Catherine would like to start toward the latter part of August. Does August feel like a good time to get started back up? Would it be okay if we started toward the latter part of August? And is it good for us to try to just keep the same day and time? Not Friday, but the Thursday at, Thursday at the time that we start? Does that work for people?
I think so. I think that works for me.
I can't remember if people sent me their out of town times or not. Oh, Heba?
It should be fine for me. The only thing is because I'm in the process of looking for new jobs. I don't know what my schedule will be like work-wise. It might be a bit of a challenge, but just a heads up. Like for now, it should be fine. I just don't know what's coming up for me.
Right. What time is it where you are right now?
Right now it's 8 p.m.
8 p.m. Well, why don't I send some dates that start at the end of August and go through September, October? And if everybody could respond Oh, let me stop sharing. There we go. And we'll get that set up, and then I'll probably send out an email with deposits and all that kind of thing. And yeah, but you might get on the internet and start looking up distaffs. They are amazing, especially in Eastern Europe.
Mhm.
I totally want to make one. They're so cool. Yeah, so thank you to everybody, and I
Thank
just
you,
want to keep going.
Jahanra.
I don't even want to like stop. There's so much that I want to.
No.
I feel like now we're at the beginning of a new thing, and I just want to like charge in.
Oh,
But we're gonna go slow because I would like everybody to remember what we've already done. Like really remember it to the point. Like now you have the story. Like when I say, who is the hut? Who is Baba Yaga? Who are the mortar and pestle? What are they about? What are the deeper layers that those become accessible? Find ways to bring those to life in your own life so that when I bring something like this thing of Mercury, that changes everything. What does that mean? This is Mercury. Oh,
yeah.
this is about something other than human beings. This is about something other than organic, human lives or initiation or, the more places that you have conscious, the more you'll be able to receive of what I'm saying. There's
Okay.
so many layers. There's so much. Like, I also would like us to continue really going deeply into that latter part of the story. So really looking into all the why 12 shirts, why, what does it mean that the king recognizes her? Who's the king? What are all these? So all that. This was really wonderful for me too. I feel very ready to move into the next phase of getting my sister back into the house. And now the house is totally infused with all of this wonderful story and all of you. And thank you for making such beautiful places in your hearts and in your lives for the story to be alive, and for giving me a place to do what I think was put here to do. And for me to be able to go deeper and deeper into the story as well, because every time that you ask me questions, every time that you are willing to go to a new layer, I get to go to another layer too. So let's keep this ship going forward.
Thank you so much, Jahanra. I think you were meant to do this. You're perfect.
Thank you, Heba.
I was gonna ask if we're gonna get some homework
Oh,
in the
you are.
meantime.
You bet
Oh,
it.
yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you better start looking into distaffs and Mercury and what does that all mean? And the
Okay.
whole latter part, I want you to get into the latter part of the story. I want you to, really learn all the riddles and make your prayer beads. And I want the way that you did the story today was so beautiful. And I'd like us to keep doing that on the thread. And I'll send out a call for that on the thread without any notes, without pre-thinking about it, so that you get to experience the magic. I don't care if there's pausing in the recording. I don't care if there's ums and ahs and ohs and I don't knows. And I am welcoming of all of that, because what I'm trying to help all of us really sink into is this vulnerability and this openness for there's got to be a space for the story to come. If we know everything, there's no place for the story to come. We have to make a throne of not knowing, a throne of vulnerability. That's where the story comes in. So yeah, there's homework.
Okay. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
you gotta spin some thread, because we gotta have thread for the next part of the story. We're gonna be knitting, God willing.
Oh boy.
'Cause we gotta make our coverings, our seed coverings for the germ of our bundles.
And we're going to knit.
Well,
I love that.
yeah, inshallah. So you gotta have a lot of thread, so you gotta make a lot of thread. I'm gonna
I
stop
love
the
it.
recording.